up, everyone? Welcome back to the Buffalo Blitz on
Mania.
the Built in Buffalo Network. And we got a big episode for you. We have a lot to talk about. Free agency just kicked off yesterday, or I guess the legal tampering period just kicked off, but free agency kicked off, and we have a lot to talk about. Before we do that, before we bring our guest on in about a minute here, Lance, how we doing, my man? And where can everyone follow us on social media, and who are we sponsored by?
Yeah, go ahead, check out our YouTube channel, get in on the conversation, or Facebook. If you're on X, appreciate it. Come on over, follow, like, and subscribe to our Built-in Buffalo Network channels. We're sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Promo code BLITZ when you sign up, get you a deposit match up to $100. And Today, we have a great show. I'm super excited to have our guest here today, Dan Pizzuta from the 33rd team. You've got to be geeking out of your mind right now, Dan. It's got to be busy as heck. So I'll let you have the floor, man. How's it going so far?
Yeah, it's good. There's a lot going on. It was, I was also just got done doing the Mania podcast, which went for a very long time, kind of going over a lot of all the free agent stuff. So on top of all the other free agent stuff, it's like, having fun talking on these shows about what is going on. And yeah, like everything has happened, over the past couple years. I think the legal tampering period was like, okay. And there was like some stuff that trickled in. Yep. But like we got to Monday and just everything happened. So that I don't know if there's anyone left to sign. So which is good to talk about. But
well, according to I'll shameless plug for you here. Dan's got a couple articles going, live updates now with the NFL free agency's best available players, and then free agents list by positions, and then Dan's counterpart Ari with the 33rd team has a free agency draft tracker up there. So very good tools. Appreciate all the work and everything that you put in. Yeah, I mean, I guess do you have a biggest surprise so far throughout the first couple days here?
Ooh, so one of the biggest surprises, I think it's not necessarily the running back market in general, but it's kind of how quickly teams went to grab running backs. Yeah. And I think when you look at the market as a whole, like outside of this Saquon Barkley deal, which, is like $12.6 million per year, and like 2 years of that are really guaranteed. But even that's below like the Jonathan Taylor extension that happened last year. So it's not like running backs were, resetting the market, even the best one on the market this year. But how quickly kind of teams went into it. And, you got like a DeAndre Swift signing in Chicago as like the first signing, which I just found kind of strange. Especially when you look like if you waited a little bit, you had like the release of like Aaron Jones, who probably could have been a better fit for Chicago at a much cheaper price. So I think how quickly teams kind of jumped at running backs was a little bit surprising, even if the deals didn't like completely, blow away and reset any type of market.
Yeah, I was looking through the list of running backs, because that's one of the positions that the Buffalo Bills may be looking into this offseason, whether it's through the draft or free agency. We assume they want to bring in a veteran back. And I saw Nyheim Hines already signed elsewhere as well, kind of one of those free agents that's maybe not the, higher end of the talent pool there. But, there's the sheer number of guys that have signed. It was definitely noted when I first took a look at the list.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think a lot of NFL teams like the top tier talent in the draft, which I don't think there is. There's always going to be useful guys in the draft. That's just kind of how running back works. But I think in terms of guys you're really scouting who you really think are going to hit, there's just going to be guys who hit just because they do, because of their situations. But I think that kind of led to teams just kind of wanting someone in the building. And I think with the cap jumping so high, it wasn't crazy to bring in some of these guys for, $6-8 million. That's fine. That's still less than that's around 4% of the cap. That's a fine place to be having running backs, even if we kind of, devalue them as a whole when so much of their situation is kind of dependent on how successful they are. When you see that, I think the Buffalo's got a guy in James Cook, so you don't have to get crazy, jumping to the market to bring someone else in, which it makes sense. But yeah, just kind of, I think the draft class, I think played a bit into, and how many running backs were on the market too. Like there were so many guys who were just scheduled to hit free agency this year, which was crazy.
Sticking with the running backs, because I think it's, like you said, one of the more fascinating what's going on in free agency. Were you surprised that so many, like if you blinked and missed the first day and a half of legal tampering, and let's say you're a huge fantasy football player, you're 6 or 8 running backs that are legit running backs in the National Football League that are on completely different teams, just flip-flopping back and forth. Were you kind of shocked that a lot of the guys didn't go back to where they were?
No, because I think there's a little bit of, I think Bill Barnwell kind of termed this phrase of like a hometown premium. And sometimes it's like if you're in a contract negotiation with a team and they're not willing to pay you what you think you are, what you're worth, you're more likely, even if you're not going to get that, you're more likely to take that from someone else than you are the team that you were kind of negotiating with who told you weren't worth this. So say for Barkley, I'm not sure the Giants were too far off from what the Eagles gave, but after so much of what that back and forth discussions were, and I think the Giants did have a bit of a hard line they weren't going to cross, I think it was more likely he was just going to test the market and try to get whatever he could, even from another team, even if it might not have been exactly what he was asking the Giants for too. So I think we kind of saw that a little bit also, like the same thing with Aaron Jones once Josh Jacobs came in, which was surprising. That whole switch.
Yeah.
There's much of an upgrade happening from if at all, from Josh Jacobs to Aaron Jones. But Aaron Jones was asked to take a pay cut. He said no, because he also took a pay cut last year. But then he went for 1 year and $6 million. That's probably what he was getting asked to take by Green Bay. But he's more likely to, hit the market, take that from someone than do the Packers, who are the ones asking him to actually take the pay cut. So I think you kind of saw a little bit of that bouncing around.
Yeah, I thought Minnesota made out really well in the Aaron Jones sweepstakes. The Sam Darnold deal was a little interesting.
So we have that. That's up to $10 million, and I don't think like we've seen an actual. I feel like up to is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Is that agent? So a lot of people say, is that agents, like, because that's what I think. Like agents are kind of. It's more of like an agent
for that one specifically. There's probably some incentives that if he starts all 17 games, he can get up to $10 million. But I don't think, $10 million is hitting the Vikings cap this year for Darnold.
How about the backup quarterback money? Because obviously the Bills signed Mitch Trubisky last week, and some Bills fans, and Lance and I haven't really got to talk about it on our show, but some Bills fans were a little too much for Mitchell Trubisky. But then you see Tyrod Taylor get a 2-year deal up to $18 million. You get to see the Sam Darnold money. Jameis Winston got paid. Marcus Mariota, Gardner Minshew, but that's a little different because it feels like Gardner's probably going to be in line to start or compete for that job. Is there a reason some of these backup quarterbacks, like Tyrod Taylor, 2 years, $18 million is a lot for him, and he's a reliable backup, and I get why the Jets are doing it, but is there a reason the quarterback backup money is, I feel like, at a premium this year?
Yeah, I think you kind of saw like starting last year when there was a lot of starting quarterbacks who got hurt. So there were a lot of backups playing, and there were a bunch of teams that just weren't really ready for that. But again, that's kind of has to do with some of the structure because, Joe Burrow got hurt and the Bengals were able to figure out like a decent offense with Jake Browning, which I'm not sure they would have expected at the start of the season. So, but you look at, the Jets having to go back to Zach Wilson, and that's an error on them from the jump. So I think there is a little bit of kind of overcorrection in there where a lot of teams are trying to get at least that veteran presence in the building. And again, quarterbacks are it's a limited resource. So that's why you see a Mitchell Trubisky and a Sam Darnold continually bounce around here because they're mostly known quantities. So teams can feel at least okay if they have to put them in to spot start a couple games. I really hope Minnesota does like something else and it's not just kind of hoping for Sam Darnold and figuring it out later. But Yeah, I think it's just kind of one of those things where we saw how important some backup quarterbacks were to some teams last year. So I think teams just wanted to get ahead of the market there.
Right on. Do you have another question for him, Peter? Or do
I
you
was
mind
going to
if I
ask.
jump in?
I was going to ask. I'll say the quarterbacks again. I know it doesn't pertain to the Bills. The Bills have their 2 quarterbacks in house. Justin Fields, right? Because that's a huge domino, right? Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta. People thought maybe that could be a destination for Justin Fields. I don't think Chicago trades in-house to Minnesota unless they get probably blown away with an offer, but I would be shocked. Like, and some people thought the Raiders, and then you get that little bit of that money to Gardner Minshew. Like, is Justin Fields out of a job at them? Like, if Chicago goes Caleb Williams, and then obviously, like, what do they do with Justin Fields?
Which I think they will. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. I think the starting positions are probably gone at this point, which is tough. Whatever, your feelings on Justin Fields are, like, he's a top 32 quarterback in this league. And with the system around him, like, should be a starter. Again, like, you have Sam Darnold, who's, penciled in as a starter for a team. And Justin Fields to this point was much better than Sam Darnold was at his career. Even if you kind of put in the systems or whatever you think of, whatever the mess the Jets were, but the Bears were like that for a little bit too.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I think it was just kind of happened to be circumstance where teams kind of wanted to get out and they don't want to be left in the dark with a quarterback. So I think teams did rush a little bit. You have, Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh, who's only going to cost them like $1.2 million because of how much money Denver is paying them. So, there were only a couple teams that really were without a starter to begin with. So I think the field of who could have traded for Justin Fields was already pretty small. And then once those spots got, filled up, it is a tough point. I would like to see him, go somewhere that will give him a chance to even compete. The Giants could have been an option as a backup. Like, they had Tyrod Taylor come in, they had success with that type of quarterback. But I think after they traded, a second for Brian Burns, they probably don't want to give up too much more draft capital for a backup quarterback, even if he is probably even better than Daniel Jones at this point. So yeah, it's a tough market. And I'm kind of interested to see what it's going to be, because I don't think teams are going to be desperate to give Chicago probably what they were hoping they were going to get at the beginning. So yeah, it's tough. He's probably going to have to settle for a backup somewhere, or they kind of hang on to him long enough that there's an injury somewhere. I don't know.
Like there's a training camp injury or an OTA to a star.
Yeah, it might have to be something like that, or just kind of wait till after the draft. And if you're a team who's trying to, trade up outside of that, top 3, and you're either looking for a JJ McCarthy or you're trying to get into the top 3 and that's kind of not available to you, then maybe a team is looking for Justin Fields. But I think this is going to be something that plays out a little longer than we were expecting when we first started.
Yeah, I think trying to pull up, so I don't want to misspeak here. The Bears have 1-9. So, I mean, is there any world where they maybe take Marvin Harrison and then maybe see how the quarterback market goes up until 9 and go for that? But anyway, that's just we're not here to talk draft quite yet, so that'll be another show. So Bills wise, Dan, if you don't mind talking a little bit about Buffalo here, and I'm not sure how much you've put in your offseason work to the Bills, but being a Bills centric show, we have a few different needs across the team here, and I wanted to get your thoughts because I know we're limited on time. Safety probably is the biggest one for this team. Do you have a safety in mind that you might like to fit the Bills personnel? I do see, a list of your top safeties here. Cameron Curl, Justin Simmons, Jordan Fuller, Julian Blackmon, Quandre Diggs is top 5 here on your list. Was interested to see Micah Hyde as far up on your list of available free agents as he was, and given, he's not likely to be back, but who do you think may be the best fit here to maybe come to Buffalo? Or do you think they maybe address that in the draft?
Yeah. And I think to your point, I think Micah Hyde started as like 84 on the list, and it's just worked his way up because everyone has gone. It's an interesting safety market, right? Because there are a lot of guys, and I think we saw, Xavier McKinney kind of got that one big deal, and there really hasn't been much after that. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson, he plays the slot too. I think got 33/3 for going back to the Eagles. So, I think because of how many safeties there are, I think it's still a good market to be in, which is why I think it kind of made sense for the Bills to kind of part ways in the way they did. It's definitely an end of an era for one of the better safety tandems we've really seen, especially in the modern era. But I think there are a lot of guys who can play well. I think, Cam Curl is definitely a versatile guy. He plays a little more in the box, but can play some of that split safety. The same thing with Jordan Fuller. I think he would be really good in that defense. There are a lot of safeties that I like. So I think if they kind of go, one safety, get in there for free agency and then try to, grab somebody else in the draft. I also like Taylor Rapp, and I think he's played well when he has. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's just kind of penciled in for a starting role after they extended him also. So I think there's volume of safety. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of wait out the market, and with some of those top tier guys gone, they weren't going to go for a McKinney. But if you're waiting long enough and a guy like Cam Curl, who I think is really good, is potentially available, I think that's kind of when you can jump. So I think the Bills are still in a decent spot there.
Yeah. What about, Lance, you got something?
Go ahead, brother.
I was going to talk about I was going to ask about wide receiver, right? Because a lot of Bills fans, if you Google Bills mock drafts, Bills fans doing mock drafts, even us doing mock drafts, 28 is penciled in with the receiver. Name a receiver outside of, I guess, the top three, and you've probably seen him at 28 in a mock draft, right? So obviously the Bills have Diggs, they have Shakir, and they kind of have a hole. Like you obviously have Kincaid, you have Knox. And I'm in the ballpark of getting like a wide receiver 4. They're not gonna pay top dollar, especially what like Darnell Mooney got today. The Bills were never in that ballpark. Do you see them maybe like a KJ Osborne, someone like that?
Yeah, I think something like that could work. And I think you're talking to someone who is a big Khalil Shakir fan. So I liked him coming out of Boise State. I think when he got on the field last year, I think he played really well. I think they kind of figured out a role for him toward the end of the season. So I would not be surprised if he gets a little more run. I'd be excited to see that. So I think you kind of have possibly a built-in option there who can just kind of take over a bigger role. I wouldn't be surprised if they go wide receiver in the draft. And if they do, well, like you said, in free agency, it's probably going to be one of those, smaller impact type of guys, especially because wide receiver is a position right now where if you got one, you're hanging on to him. And like you kind of need to either get him in the draft or like if you have, a Cincinnati T. Higgins where you kind of have to trade for a guy who's franchise who might not fit exactly. Like that's where we saw, 2 off seasons ago, where we saw like the AJ Brown movement, the Tyreek Hill movement. Like these were guys that just teams weren't able to extend to big deals. So you could kind of get in there. I think that market kind of dried up a little bit because I think you see like a Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco. San Francisco doesn't want to get rid of him because they know Brandon Ayuk is really good. And we're not sure if we can find another Brandon Ayuk. Yeah. So the wide receiver market is tough. Your best bet to get like an impact guy is probably, if you're looking for that, is probably going to be in the draft. So I would not be surprised there. But I don't think the Bills are going to be, and again, this is a deep draft too, where you could be getting guys who still make an impact in the second and third round. So I wouldn't be surprised if they wait a little bit there, just kind of get a bigger collection of receivers, because if that was a problem of some of the Bills, is kind of relying on the actual wide receivers they had a little too much, and it wasn't quite a rotation. And kind of once they moved in guys like Shakir and got them a little more into the offense, I think that helped out everybody. If you could be a little more versatile, move some of those guys around, you can move Stephon Diggs a little more. So I think when you're just kind of looking at depth and versatility right now, I think you can find that in any of the first 3 rounds of the draft. I think you have a guy in Shakir who is really good, should get more opportunity. And then you do have a guy like a KJ Osborne who would be a fun fit too.
Yeah, and the Bills lost their the guy with the most pass rushing attempts per PFF anyway, Leonard Floyd, had the most pass rushing attempts for the Bills last year, obviously. And they did sign back AJ Epinesa, that we have Greg Rousseau, Von Miller, but it still seems like maybe one more edge rusher, whether it be in the draft or free agency. So when we're looking at free agents out there right now in the edge rusher market. What are you seeing in that market, I guess, and how big of a deal are guys like Chase Young and Jadeveon Clowney and maybe Carl Lawson? How big of a deal are those guys maybe going to get? Do you have a market kind of valuation on those guys?
Yeah, I think those guys are going to be super interesting because, I guess Chase Young is doing like an actual free agency tour where he's like visiting a couple teams tomorrow before he makes a decision. So, he's probably going to be out of the Bills price range. I would guess you're probably going to, need to get some of these guys who are looking for like a 1-year deal. Clowney would make sense. I think he like kind of just shows up on these like mercenary 1-year deals and plays pretty well and did his best season, I think, this past year in Baltimore. I think he could do similar things in Buffalo. So like he's the type of guy. I don't know if like you want like a Carl Lawson, because I don't know how much like that is going to that cost. But again, at this point, like Josh Uche would have been great, but he signed for like $5 million with the Patriots, which was crazy. I don't understand why the league doesn't like him. And the Patriots really didn't for a while because he was only getting like 100 pass rush snaps per year. But like he's the type of guy.
What about like a Derek Barnett? Someone like
he's
what would he command? I like what you said, because they did that last year with Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd was after June 1st. And everyone knows the Trey White, they get $10 million in cap space post June 1st. So this like the Bills probably add a need later in free agency. They did that with Leonard Floyd, kind of let the market sit, because there will be 1 or 2 edge rush or players at each position that are good that just don't get the contract they're looking for.
Yeah, that can definitely, be something, if you want to go kind of young, like Darrell Taylor, like could be the type of guy who, has shown some pass rush development, hasn't completely broken out. If you're looking for, an older guy, like again, like a Yannick Ngakoue is going to be that type of guy. Marcus Golden is a guy who I think is, continually underrated. He was like the 3rd edge rusher, or 4th really, by the end of the season in Pittsburgh, but he's been good wherever he's gone. He also good run defense, which I think would help on the edge as kind of a rotational piece. So I think the Bills just also with, their monetary situation of where they are with the cap, I think as we're talking right now, they're still over the cap. For the latest projection. So they still need to figure out like a way to cut like $2 million, which isn't going to be an issue. But again, it just kind of shows like what the Bills are working with right now. And they're, they were never going to make a splash for, like a Brian Burns. They just weren't in that type of market. So I think you're going to be sitting in kind of that, waiting out a veteran like a Ngakoue or a Marcus Golden type of player who I think can be impactful. It's just kind of, changing your expectations for what they're going to bring in. And really your hope there is that Von Miller like returns to at least like 85% of Von Miller, because if he's not, it doesn't really matter who you're bringing in at that point either.
That's fair. That's 100%.
Yeah. You got a free agent in Lawrence guy. So if you want a guy, you can get an actual guy. So that's my stupid pun for today. Dan, I don't want to keep you too much longer than you had promised us. So I do appreciate the time. So take a minute here, or however long you want, if you want to just have people let people know where to find you and what you're working on and anything you're passionate about right now. Can have a few minutes here or a minute or two and let me know.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. Yes, and find me at Dan Pizzuta everywhere. I'm really only on Twitter, but you can still find me anywhere pretty much at that handle. Even the safety social networks that we're waiting for Twitter to implode, I'm there too. You can find all my work at the 33rd team right now. Again, we have so much free agency stuff going on. I have, the initial top 100 that's there. We've been updating my top 100 for the best remaining guys. I'll be writing up free agency stuff. I think I'm going to be writing about the guards and kind of that market that exploded for tomorrow. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. There's a lot of good content just on the 33rd team in general. So pretty much everything I do, I'll be, tweeting out also. So if you just kind of want to follow along there, that's where the best way to find what I'm doing. A lot of good work on the 33rd team. So thank you guys for having me.
Of course, man.
And really appreciate it. Yeah, we didn't get to the offensive line. That's usually my area where I like to talk more. But we'll let you get out of here and appreciate all the time.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Appreciate it. Okay. So that was Dan from 33rd Team. So a little bit of not just Bills content there, Lance, but some overall free agency content. And I thought the running back moves were kind of fascinating. Like if you blinked, like I said, you missed 6 or 7 legit top end running backs, just completely flipped teams. I thought I tweeted out today, I thought Aaron Jones of the Vikings was just incredible by Minnesota. And I think that's exactly how you replace someone like Dalvin Cook, which they tried to do last year with Alexander Madison. Completely did not work. But then they make that boneheaded move and sign Sam Darnold. So they don't have a quarterback. So you also have that thing. And look, Lance, we have a lot to talk about, a lot about the Bills. You and I we're not really going to get into it because it's a little bit of old news at this point. You and I did our show last Tuesday night. We're breaking down some things. The next day, hell breaks loose. Everything just starts. And of course, it wasn't the day of our show, which would have been awesome, but we missed it by a day. You have Trey White, Mitch Morse, Jordan Poyer, Deontay Hardy, Saran Neal. Like you have guys that have been stable guys on this franchise. Obviously, Poyer, White, and Mitch Morse come to mind and are no longer on this team. The Bills are retooling, not rebuilding. And look, the Bills made some moves today. They made some moves the last 2 days. We're going to get into it, but I'm going to list them off quickly, Lance, and then we can start talking about them because we have a lot to talk about. They got Mitch Trubisky on a 2-year deal. They signed Dion Dawkins to a 3-year extension after he absolutely scared the you-know-what out of Bills fans for about 11 minutes there, which I thought was hilarious. I was sitting on my computer. I'm like, oh, this guy's so messing with us. Cam Lewis back on a 2-year deal. AJ Epinesa back on a 2-year deal, which that money, my God, Lance, what a deal for the Bills there. And then Daquan Jones back on a 2-year deal, which was happened at 1 a.m. yesterday, or I guess today. And then Nicholas Morrow, 1-year deal, who started 12 games for the Eagles last year. And then obviously Jordan Poyer recently signed with the Dolphins. And to quote Tiki Barber, he's dead to me. Not joking. He's not dead to me. But to quote Tiki Barber, what he said to about Saquon, they're dead to each other, I guess, which was funny. But okay, Lance, we have a lot to get to. Anybody you want to talk about first, or like anything that sparks your mind? Because we also have some needs we want to talk about, like we did, and we got some questions we got to ask. And appreciate everyone watching. We have over 450 people right now watching, so that is awesome. Get over on YouTube and Facebook, drop some comments, let us know. Lance, anything sparks your mind there?
Yeah, I mean, AJ Epinesa and Daquan Jones, I mean, both of them, to me, equally big signings. I think that defensive line, I mentioned, Leonard Floyd actually led the defensive ends in pass rushes or pass rush snaps last year, and he's gone. So AJ Epinesa in line to, take a bigger role. They may add another veteran, or they may add another rookie to that. Probably both. I mean, they're going to end up with, 6-7 guys there in a rotation and maybe pare that down to 4 by the time we get to the 53. But going to bring some guys in there. Be interesting to see how they construct the defensive line now, because we have basically our starting 4, and then we have a little bit of depth with Kingsley Jonathan and AJ Epinesa behind Von Miller and Greg Rousseau. We have Daquan Jones now paired with Ed Oliver again, and not sure what else we have behind there. So obviously going to be a rookie coming into play there with maybe some other free agents or maybe possibly 2 rookies on that defensive line coming in on the interior of the defensive line. So very excited though to have Daquan and AJ Epinesa back, because they just bring the knowledge and the presence and really the capabilities that this defensive line needs to operate with. I think that Daquan said he's not being hindered in his rehab or in his training at all now from the pec. AJ Epinesa was very much a force last year, did get hurt, but I mean, batted pass into an interception in one game and just really showed the ability to kind of take off in a game. For me, I just think that those 2 signings were a huge spirit lifter for the defense, and the defense is the one is the side of the ball that's kind of decimated right now. The offense has gone through a little transformation, and we'll see some additions maybe to the wide receiver room, the offensive line room may be tweaked a little bit more as we see Connor McGovern kick into center, which, per Sal Capaccio, the Bills are making Connor McGovern their starting center. And now really, if there's a competition, I would expect that to be at left guard with David Edwards and whomever else they might either draft or bring in via free agency to fill that hole. David Edwards, obviously kind of one of those leader in the clubhouse type of deals because he was here last year and he did, play admirably in that time. So
we talked about him last week.
Yeah. Really, really glad to see, that they did bring him back. So he was earlier in the week before the tampering. So
and now we know why after Mitch Morse.
Yeah, right, exactly. And after that flurry of moves. So I mean, I guess out of all that, just happy to keep some of the defensive line room intact and whole. So what about you? What do you have for the recap kind of?
Yeah, like we have all the guys obviously listed, but like it all goes into one. But AJ Epenesa, like that 2-year deal, like about $12 million. I thought that was a really good deal by the Bills because you saw what Leonard Floyd got, Lance, at 2 years, $20 million to go. He went to San Fran, correct?
Floyd, yeah.
Yeah, San Fran. Okay. And then obviously, look, the D tackle is still a question mark, right? Like it's still under my needs, which we'll get to at the end of the show, is something that I still want to add another D tackle, probably two. And guys, always remember this includes the draft. You're not going to fill. They try to fill every need via free agency, the best of their ability, and obviously you can factor into the draft. Let's all take that into account. But yeah, like you had to bring back Daquan Jones, Lance, right? Like I think you needed him back in. You saw his presence. You and I talked about this. You saw his presence missed on the field when he was injured after the London game, which was a complete disaster for the Bills. And you saw that, right? And look, I like Daquan Jones. I think he's really good. 2-year deal. You're still not future set at the D tackle position, but at this moment, I don't think you have to be. Obviously, depends if let's say you take a D tackle early in the draft, then you can build for the future for the D tackle room. The Dion Dawkins extension is really good. You lock up one of the best left tackles or one of the best tackles in football. You open up a little bit of cap space on top of that, and you get him locked up to 2027. So the O-line is pretty much set for this year. You would assume Edwards slides into the left guard. Maybe they address guard early in the draft. We'll see. There wasn't a lot of moves, Lance, right? Like Cam Lewis coming back, I thought on a 2-year deal, $4 million deal. The good thing about Cam Lewis, he's depth. He knows the system. He can play the safety position. He can play the nickel corner position, right? Like where he factors in depends on who's healthy, who's not. I don't expect him to be the day one starter. I know a lot of people said he is. I think that would be an absolute disaster for the Bills if he turns into the day one starter. No offense to Cam Lewis, but I think he adds a good amount of depth, especially if he's your third or fourth safety, because he can also, like I said, play the safety position and then add into the nickel spot as well. And I don't know, like you saw Gabe Davis walk. I thought that was something that you and I kind of, for the most part, Lance, would you say expected? We didn't think Gabe Davis was under. Look, the Bills obviously probably wanted to bring back Gabe, right? They probably did not want to move off Gabe, but financially didn't really work for the Bills. He gets a 3-year deal, heads to Jacksonville, and reunites with Chad Hall. Also reunites with Mitch Morse, who goes to Jacksonville on a deal. But look, they haven't made any splash moves. We didn't expect them to make splash moves. The cap doesn't allow them really to make splash moves, but you bring back Daquan, you bring back Epenesa, you bring back Cam Lewis, you fill some of those needs. And the Nicholas Morrow deal that was announced a couple hours ago, you bring in a linebacker, which probably signifies the end of Terrell Dotson's tenure as a Buffalo Bill. Nicholas Morrow had 74 tackles this past season. He had a couple sacks as well, and his PFF grades were pretty good. 71 overall, 75.6 run defense, 81.1 pass rush, and he's not the best coverage guy at 62.6, but he'll slide in to be that third or fourth linebacker for the Bills. And something that I think not enough people are talking about, Lance, he started 12 games for a team that made the playoffs last year. Look, So that is something we have to take into account. He's good, third or fourth safety. And something that you and I said to you when we came on, AJ Klein started a divisional round game for the Buffalo Bills. If you don't think the Bills need depth at the linebacker position, you're kidding yourself. AJ Klein started a divisional round game against the eventual Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, I think Morrow is a perfect depth piece. He actually 100%. did some calling plays and things with the Eagles. So I think
he started 12 games.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm getting echoed. I don't know if you hear me echoing, but just
no.
Anyways,
not.
Good.
Let us know in the comments if you hear Lance echoing.
Morrow obviously giving the ability to have leadership and step up and call the defense in a pinch there in Philly. I think that just shows great intelligence, and that's the type of players we need on this defense.
Yeah, you need legit guys, right? And you need depth, and you need like I said, AJ Klein started. No offense to AJ Klein, but he basically even admitted he was on a road trip to wherever he was going to. He packed an RV and he was gone. Let me know if you hear an echo from me because I don't hear an echo.
You're good.
Okay. Are you that's something that happens, right? So yeah, they needed a depth. They got a depth piece. And look, I know people are not happy. Jeremy Chin goes to Washington, right? Guys, the Bills are not going to get everyone, and not everyone is going to sign with the Bills. Just because you would do the deal doesn't mean maybe the Bills wanted to do the deal, but you got to remember there's a player and there's an agent on the other side that also have to, something that's crazy to some people, agree to the deal. It work. You have to agree both ways, guys. It's kind of mind numbing to me on Twitter every time someone signs with another team that maybe it's a position we need or a player that someone wanted, someone tweeted about that. Why didn't he come to the Bills? The Bills are messing up. Like, guys, you got to remember, they're not Bills fans. Like, we all would go play for the Bills. Doesn't mean Jeremy Chin gives a you know what about the Bills. Like, it's just part of the business. But like I said, I would have done the Jeremy Chin deal too. But I'm not going to blame the guy for not taking anything. It's part of it. Lance, you think the echo's okay?
I'm not sure. We're going to try to do what we can do.
Do you hear it?
So gonna just keep rolling.
Lance, you're killing me, man. You're killing me. Maybe is echo cancellation off on StreamYard for you?
No, it's on, but it's all good. So I think that it's just gonna be what it is. I'm not sure what I can do to
just keep talking, man. Your voice would your beautiful voice will be okay.
Yeah.
I don't know where we were.
So what do you got next for the next banner, I guess?
We just have other free agents we talk about, but because we kind of went through we did go through the list of basically all the free agents because the Bills haven't moved.
Did we do Dion? I think that Dion.
Yeah, you didn't talk about Dion.
Is very helpful obviously for the cap situation this year, and then on outside of that you have a obviously locking up a Walter Payton Man of the Year candidate perennially is a big deal. So
well, you Lance, you couldn't have and I know this was never in the cards. It was Dion Dawkins putting it into the cards for 10 minutes into legal tampering, but you could never have created that hole. Like, that was just not the time to create the hole, and it had nowhere near. Like, I saw people tweeting about like Ryan Vandermark or Alec Anderson, similar to what Dion Dawkins did when he replaced Cody Glenn, when the Bills traded up to get Josh Allen and he was part of the deal. Guys, Dion Dawkins was a second-round pick. No offense to Alec Anderson or Ryan Vandermark. Nowhere near where Dion Dawkins was at that point. No offense to those guys, but you're comparing apples to a piece of steak. Like, that's just not the same. And the Bills could not have created that hole at left tackle, especially when you have Josh Allen. You don't have that's what you do when you're trying to rebuild and you're trying to retool the roster. And maybe you don't want to pay Dion Dawkins because you're not trying to win right now. The Bills are trying to go win games. They're trying to win the division. They're trying to win the Super Bowl. They're not in the moment, or they're not in the mindset right now to create a gaping hole from their Pro Bowl left tackle. Just was never in the cards. It was never in the cards. Dion Dawkins made us think about it for 10 minutes. And thank you to Dion for that. Yeah, AJ Epenesa back, Daquan Jones back, Cam Lewis. Like the Bills didn't do much, right? Like they did what we thought. They got their guys back, and now they're going to let the market settle. So let's talk about the market, Lance, right? Let's talk about it. So the market's settling. It's going to start to settle, right? The guards got paid. The backup quarterbacks got paid. Running backs got flipped left and right. It was a mayhem there. The Bills were never in for those guys. The Bills are going to let the market settle. If you had to go right now, what's a position or what's a player that you like tomorrow morning you want to wake up and you want to see this guy signed to the Bills?
I'm anxious to see kind of what they're going to do at the safety position, but I'm not really worried. I think I like the wait, let the market settle, just be patient. Let the people that are going to let the teams that are going to, pay top dollar for these guys do that. And then you don't need to overspend. Like there's plenty of talent out there right now at the positions that we need to where we can wait. And then I don't want to say like take what's left over by any means. That's not a slight to anyone who would be out there. It's just a matter of fact. Like we're not going to be actively pursuing someone that's going to command, and give them leverage to command a higher salary. That's just, I think they absolutely. I think John's right. They're going to extend Teron Johnson, make some more cap room. They're going to make another move that maybe someone doesn't expect, and I'm not sure exactly what that is. Maybe a running back that maybe we didn't have on our radar. I know, our owner and founder Dave is high on a guy like Ezekiel Elliott coming in to play in Buffalo, and maybe something like that.
I'm
That's
an
going to
AJ
happen.
Dillon guy.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Ezekiel Elliott fan, but I mean, I guess that
But
is what it is.
Lance, you make a good point, right? You're going to and we talked about that a little bit with Dan, right? Like it could be a post June 1st when you create
Sure.
$10 more million in cash. Like you're going to let guys sit and wait a little. And then eventually teams are not going to need, every team doesn't need 5 running backs. Like that's not how that works. Eventually there's going to be guys like what you did for Damian Harris, what you did for Leonard Floyd. Those are the deals they're going to get, right? And obviously you want guys long-term, but that's when this year's draft becomes so important. Like we'll get in about a week or two, we'll kind of see the shape of where maybe potentially the Bills are going to go in the draft, right? Like if they add another safety, they still can go get a safety in the draft because the odds are the safety they get from now until the next couple of weeks not going to be a long-term option at safety, or even Taylor Rapp's not a long-term option at safety, right? But they're going to let the market set. I like safety, like a Jordan Fuller, a Cameron Curl, a Mike Edwards. Justin Simmons might be a little bit too expensive for the Bills, but he's a guy that could be asking too much, and then eventually he drops. But he is 30. The Bills might want to get a little younger there. So is Quadre Diggs. He's 31. Lance, you would think the Bills would be in the market for a free safety, even if Spot Track lifts Micah Hyde as a strong safety for some.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to know exactly free safety versus strong safety in this McDermott defense because he kind of uses them to their talents and things like that. He sometimes drops one back and puts one in the box or has 3 safeties on the field, whatnot. So that I'm more tuned into the line play. So on the back end, however that looks, you can label the guys however you want, but they just need to be able to be reliable in coverage and be smart enough to play in this defense. Cause that's really why Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer were so successful, is because they were smart and they knew where to be and when to be there. And they had freak athleticism. When you look at that Micah Hyde interception against the Patriots, right? Just coming out of nowhere and taking that ball away. Those are the kind of plays that you're looking for. I think this draft absolutely lines up really well for where the Bills need, because you can get a guy like we've been talking about Jordan Jefferson on the defensive line in the 4th or 5th round. You're talking about the kid out of Miami at safety in the 4th round area. There's some other safeties are kind of not going to be going early in the draft, so you can maybe trade into the 3rd round if your guy's still there and get a safety. So not too worried about the safety position as a whole. I think that lines up really well for the Bills. It lines up fairly well that they can now use their 1st round pick probably to get, the wide receiver that's available, or try to move up and get kind of that wide receiver they want in the first round that they want to make the wide receiver 2 type
Mhm.
of deal. Second round is going to be very interesting for me because I think they still need another guard to maybe long term or even this season compete with David Edwards. And so there's some guys that are really intriguing on the offensive line that could play guard in the NFL. Mahogany out of Boston College is one name that I've heard people raving about. So, you know, I don't think Bills Mafia is necessarily going to like spending a second round pick on an offensive guard, but it's in
Again,
play for me at least. But also edge rusher, at second round, I think you can get some good talent there as well, to add to the defensive end, or even if there's a guy like Devondre Sweat there in the second round for the interior of the defensive line, really good talent available when the Bills are going to be picking at the positions of need.
Mhm.
Obviously, you would like to go get a higher caliber wide receiver, one of the top 3, and that's probably not in the cards based upon their draft position. But I still think they can get a capable wide receiver 2 out of this draft at the end of the first round.
yeah, like I said a minute ago, it also depends on obviously what they do for the rest of the next couple of weeks in free agency and how they also add to the roster. There's some good safeties out there, like a Jordan Fuller. Like I said, they want to add 2, maybe a Terrell Edmonds is not a bad option. Jordan Whitehead, Cameron Curl's only 24. I think he would be a great option. He could be a long-term option. I don't know what he's looking for. And then you mentioned receiver, right? And I still think they go receiver at round 1. That's still where I'm at the moment, and nothing that I've seen or read has changed me on that. But they do need to add another receiver, right? Like in free agency, they have
You want
to
a first round receiver, or you want T. Higgins?
They're not gonna be able to pay T. Higgins.
Just saying.
Do you think they can pay T. Higgins?
No.
Okay, then I don't want T. Higgins. You have to be able to go pay T. Higgins.
Well, I think that he could figure. I mean, Bean can figure anything out.
Would you give up 28 for T. Higgins? If you can pay him long term, because I would.
You'd have to give up more than that, but yeah.
Okay, you have to pay T. Higgins. I don't think this team is going to do that. I would be shocked if they do that, and I'd also be shocked if Cincinnati traded us T. Higgins, a team that we've met in the playoffs and had
for sure.
Matchup. And then I'm assuming they're not like, but knowing them, they'll trade him to this Kansas City because just to be annoying. But receivers, like I still think I love Khalil Shakir, and even Dan said he loves Khalil Shakir. I don't know if I'm ready to anoint him as the number 2 receiver on this roster. And we always have to remember Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox exist. Dalton Kincaid is more than just a tight end. Dalton Kincaid was great in this rookie year when he got a little consistent more towards the end of the year, but I thought he had a really good rookie year, and he's just going to keep getting better and turning into a star tight end. So you got to remember he exists because he's not just your typical tight end. He's a legit receiver. He's not Travis Kelce, but he's a legit receiver. I do think I'm not ready to put Khalil Shakir as the number 2. I love Khalil Shakir. I thought he was great when he got reps, super explosive with the ball. I think he fits in as a 3. I think a rookie fits in as the 2. When I mean the 2, I mean another guy on the outside because Khalil Shakir plays more on the inside. I do think they need to get another one in free agency, right? I don't think they go get Curtis Samuel. I would love Curtis Samuel. He's probably too expensive. I don't think they get Curtis Samuel. I know Mike in the comment section, Tyler Boyd. Is Tyler Boyd too similar to Khalil Shakir? Like, is that just too? I think that's a little too redundant, in my opinion, because for the most part, Tyler Boyd's played mostly inside in his career. Right? So I don't think he's an option. Like Marquise Brown would be incredible. He's going to be too expensive. I think like Darnell Mooney got 3 years, like $38 million or whatever it was. Darnell Mooney got that. Like, and I like Darnell Mooney, but I'm not giving Darnell Mooney that. So the Bills are going to have to let that receiver market slip a little. Obviously, they're not in on Calvin Ridley. I would be shocked. I mentioned a couple guys, right? I think, what was I going to say? Who I just had? I had him. Laviska Shenault would be a good option as a 4th receiver. I like KJ Osborne, super explosive. I think they need an explosive guy. They tried that with Trent Sherfield last year. It completely failed miserably because he forgot how to catch a ball. And there's a couple other guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones is decent. Quez Watkins has some speed. that's where they're probably shopping, I think, for receivers. Lance, is there a receiver that you like?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of
Realistically?
receivers out there that I think will fit the bill. I don't think that any of them are going to come in and make a splash. I mean, I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. But I
It
think
would have to
there's
be like a Marquise Brown level or Curtis Samuel to make a splash, in my opinion.
for sure. You know, I'm interested to see like what Peoples Jones would get on the market. Was talking about Quez Watkins at the beginning of free agency. I'm not really sure. Um, yeah, I don't have a bunch of names here to throw out. Chenault is big, and I'm not sure if he would command any attention. So there's an appeal of, just his size out there would be good. But yeah, I'm more focused on I think they draft 2 or 3 wide receivers this year. With
Yeah,
all the picks they have. I just think that you're bringing in probably 3. I think between free agency and the draft, you're bringing in 4 wide receivers to this
really.
roster, and
I would say
maybe
I'm more
1 free agent, 2 in the
T
draft,
draft.
1 UDFA.
Mike's coming back in with Tyler Boyd. Isn't he mostly a slot guy? Am I missing something here with Tyler Boyd? I don't do you look? I don't know how much Tyler Boyd's played on the outside. I like Tyler Boyd. Obviously, we know what he did for the Bills, helping us make the playoffs a handful of years back. I like Tyler Boyd, but if he plays too much inside, and I'm trying to I think he plays too much inside, right? Lance?
Yeah, he plays more slot. Yeah, and Shakir also played more
Sorry,
slot.
no worries, Mike. I appreciate your comment.
Yeah,
He said sorry, but no. I
Shakir
think
played 76% of his snaps last year in the slot. So we have to
how much
assume, based upon
he's
those
gonna play.
numbers,
He's gonna
that
play the
he's going to
slot.
play mostly in the slot. They
Sure.
did try him out there on the outside, and I don't think he was that bad, to be honest with you, playing out wide.
Yeah,
But I don't know that they necessarily want to make
a
that where
lot.
he lives, and make sure. But it's good to they gave him some snaps out there and
Yeah,
tested his
no.
versatility. But
I
even
don't.
Dalton Kincaid out snapped Shakir for wide, splitting out
Kincaid's
wide, and
good.
that's something.
Well, Kincaid's, like I said earlier, is not your typical tight end. Dawson Knox is your prototypical tight end. Kincaid's not. And Tyler Boyd's a really good player. He's a good, solid NFL player, and I have nothing against what Tyler Boyd has done and what he can do for the rest of his career. I just don't know if the fit's there for the Bills and what they're potentially looking for. That's kind of where I'm at. DJ Chark would be an interesting option, a guy that can take the top off the defense, right? Like he would command a 1-year deal. If you brought in a DJ Chark and then drafted a guy at 28 and then drafted a guy in the 4th round or the 5th round, I think that would be nice. But you're shopping at not the clearance section, but you're shopping like I put in my needs wide receiver, but I put in parentheses wide receiver 4 because that's where you're shopping. You're shopping for a wide receiver 4 unless you go get Calvin Ridley, which they're not, or Marquise Brown, but that would have to do a lot of maneuvering. And
Tyler Boyd played 85.5% of his snaps in the slot. 521 snaps in the slot, 89 outside. Now I know Cincinnati has Chase and Higgins, so you're not going to really have much opportunity out there.
True.
But just to say, he's lived in the slot. He's going to be in the slot. Doesn't mean the Bills couldn't try something, bringing a guy in. Just having – they talk about having the best players on the field. So if Tyler Boyd's one of the best players they could have on this roster and they try something with Shakir on the outside, I'm all for trying that. I don't think you can really hate him for that. But, it's funny, actually, Donovan Peoples-Jones had as many snaps on the outside as Trent Sherfield last year. So that'd be kind of one of you're talking about usage, kind of a apples to apples comparison there.
Lance, before we get to, I know you like the big boys up front. Before we get to maybe a little mock draft, we have time. D tackle, right? So they have Ed Oliver, they have Daquan Jones, and then they got a whole lot of nothing. I think they have to go get another D tackle in free agency. I really do. I think they need to get another one. I put that in my needs. They needed 2. They got 1 with Daquan Jones. Is Tim Settle back in Buffalo? Is that probably the move, you think? Did they run that D tackle room back? Or are we looking at, could they do this? Could they run Tim Settle back and then also add another free agent D tackle?
100%. I mean, they're going to need guys. They're going to need 5, 6 guys coming into camp at a
Mhm.
minimum. So you're going to still draft one as well, maybe 2 if they're deep around. They have 11 picks, so getting 2 in one position is not going to be over the top. I
Detrimental.
think when they lose, Puna. I know Ford didn't have a ton of success, but they lost Puna Ford, Tim Settle, and Jordan Phillips. So you lose 3 guys. You
They
probably
lost
want to
4
sign
originally.
3 guys.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to at least sign 1, maybe 2 in free agency and draft, and then if you sign 1 more in free agency, draft 2. If you sign 2 in free agency, draft 1, that kind of deal. In my opinion, I think
They're-
you just need to have a good rotation in there for the interior defensive line.
And something that I think the Bills should also do is bring back Shaq Lawson. And I saw a couple people tweet that today, and a lot of hate. You bring back Shaq Lawson on one of those really cheap deals. He's not solidified on the roster, guys. He can 100% get beat out in camp, but it just gives you another body and another guy that when he's called upon, Lance, he contributes, right? He's not a sack guy, never will be, never has been. That's not his
Right.
thing outside of 1 year in his career, which is one of the reasons he got paid in Miami. But he's a guy that can stop the run. I think once again be a good fit edge rusher. The edge rushing room and the D tackle room are really interesting. They're really interesting. So we'll see what they do there. But I would bring back Tim Settle. I really would. I thought Tim Settle was a solid D tackle. I don't think he's going to command that much. Like, what does Spot Track have his market at? They don't have a lot of guys left. They have it 3.7. You definitely can get a little lower than 3.7, in my opinion. Working
Yeah,
some things
obviously,
there.
we talked about him, before, I believe, and just love the guy's energy coming in. Just
Oh, yeah.
excited to be here and excited for the opportunity. So for me, I don't have any issue
No.
with a guy like Tim Settle coming back. You're going to need those kind of guys, that presence that's been here, the knowledge, and still, moderately productive. I don't hate the idea of it, but I think there are better options out there still that you're able to get via the draft or another free agent signing.
Okay. So this is not breaking news. This was tweeted an hour ago, but Matthew Bove from Channel 7 in Buffalo?
Yeah, Matt Bove.
Bove? I like Bove better, but no, I know it's Bove. So he quote tweeted a guy. So some guy tweeted, "Do you think the Bills are done in free agency, big move wise?" And this is what he had to say: "Absolutely not. They'll start to bargain shop, but I still think they may have one more in parentheses big move, similar to Daquan, which is like that 2-year, $15 to $18 million deal, and then it'll be depth players."
Yeah.
So he doesn't have sources, but he knows more. He might have sources, but he knows more than you and I do. He's obviously more connected than you and I do. I do think there's another move in there that, like Lance said, maybe we didn't expect. It might be a position we expect, but it might be a 2 to 3 year deal on a guy we didn't expect. It could be another D tackle, could be an edge, could be a safety. I probably would guess it's on the defensive side of the ball. That's probably my guess.
Right.
Because like the receiver rooms, only the big move would be a couple of those top guys, and I don't think they're in the market for those guys based off what Mooney got and based off what Gabe Davis got. But I don't think they're done. They're not.
Yeah,
done.
I don't either. Like I said, I would expect the unexpected. Expect the unexpected. There's going to be one more move that is someone out there is going to project it. Maybe multiple people have already projected the move that's going to happen, but I just think that for the general Bills fan that's not digging deep in all these things and looking into a lot of different metrics and things like that, I think there's going to be a move out there that is like, oh, hey, okay, that's bigger than I thought they were going to go at this point in free agency, And I honestly, I don't hate the fact that we've sat, that the Bills have just kind of sat idle and kind of let the things unfold and let things happen naturally, and then we'll see what's left and see not necessarily even trying to say that we need to pick up the pieces or just settle for what's left, but I just really
Settle.
think with the offense that the way it is, you have Josh Allen and this offensive line is intact really well.
Yeah.
If you slot David Edwards as a starting left guard, you just need a receiver and that's it. And your offense is still really, really good. And then maybe you need 2 receivers. I don't know. It's hard to say. You don't really know what they're going to get from Shorter, Andy Isabella, or Hamler, right? And they're not projected to be.
I'm hoping Hamler is the punt returner, kick returner.
They're not projected to be anything great, but there's still pieces that are there on this roster that I don't see how you can dismiss the fact that they have potential. And yeah, they haven't been good necessarily. They haven't been ultra productive in this league yet, but the Bills regime sees what they're capable of, and it's then up to them to put them in a position to be successful in this league. And that's one of the things I think this coaching staff's done a really good job of. So that's why, for me, I'm not really counting out some of the guys we already have in house, but I also think they definitely need to make a strong addition, like you said, wide receiver 4, and then drafting. But outside of that, the offense I think is really solid. So focusing on solidifying that defense, where we lost a lot of pieces there, both in the secondary and on the line, it's going to take some work to retool that.
Do you think Brandon Bean is banking on grabbing on grabbing one of the top 3 D tackles in the draft, or does he just fill every spot now and consider any defensive tackle from the draft as a bonus?
I expect him to grab. I don't know if he's going to grab one of the top 3. Depends on how the wide receiver market falls out in the draft and what we do in free agency on the wide receiver market. So I think we have to go wide receiver round 1. I just think that's too. I think we have to go wide receiver maybe round 1 and 2, but that's probably not going to happen. If one of the top 3 falls to the second round pick, I think we run to the podium and try to get that guy. I know we've been talking about the way the board falls with the receivers getting to 28. We have mocked getting was it Murphy from Texas, I think, at DT there.
Byron Murphy.
Early,
so Chop Robinson, who's not a DT, but he's an edge.
So it could also go after one of those, but I just think that the target's going to be wide receiver early on. And if one of the top 3 falls to your second round choice, then D tackle is 100% in play in the second round to grab a guy like that.
When the Bills draft Jordan Jefferson in the 4th round, and you hear a little girl screaming in someone's house, that's Lance for Jordan Jefferson. Not having that 3rd round pick with the compensatory absolutely in us, giving us a little smack in the doesn't help the situation. Thank you, NFL, for just absolutely, I guess, a huge contract to Tremaine Edmonds, a homegrown guy, former 1st round pick, 4 years, $80+ million or whatever it was. Tremaine Edmonds doesn't allow for a 3rd round, but only a 4th round, because that makes total sense. Thank you for that. That made no sense because it was stupid. But no, I think a D tackle probably is in the 4th round. That's my guess. At the moment, the Bills go D tackle in the 4th round. I like the comment. I like the question. I don't think they take one of the top 3 D tackles, because that would have to be Byron Murphy, Newton from Illinois, and I don't know, like Darius Robinson if you slide him in a D tackle, or Tavondre Sweat. Right? I don't know if it's in play at 28, because maybe a couple guys go before and you just can't reach on a Tavondre Sweat. I'm not saying reaching is Tavondre Sweat's a reach. Tavondre Sweat is a reach, but I think you can get D tackles later in the draft. I think.
The value of where you can get a guy in the 4th round is there. I mean, like I said, you talk about some of these guys like Jordan Jefferson.
Yeah,
you've been talking about Tyler Davis out of Clemson. There's a lot of depth to this, and not saying any of them are going to be all pro defensive ends. I just think that there's just enough promise there and enough talent to go out and get the right fit for you later in the draft and not have to spend early draft capital. It's all about value, valuation. You have to get the right value at the right pick, and D tackle just probably isn't going to be the right value in the 1st or 2nd round for us.
Are you ready for us to sign off and then the Bills make a move?
Yeah, that'd be great. I would sign up for that right now.
I kind of want to be on air. Should we just wait until midnight? Just sit here?
Yeah, we'll just sit here live. Sure, that's all right.
Gotcha. Do you want to rip? Do you want to rip a simulator before we get out of here?
Yeah, I have it ready to go.
Is it updated with us not having a 3rd round pick?
I guess I don't know that. We'll have to find out here.
Because
I'm just going to do we're just going to do the first 4 rounds here. So
yeah.
What were you going to say before what?
I was just going to recap what the Bills have done so far while you
go ahead.
But I can recap. Yeah. Mitch Trubisky, 2-year deal. Let me know if I missed anything here. Mitch Trubisky to a 2-year deal. Dion Dawkins on a 3-year contract extension. Cam Lewis resigns for a 2-year deal. AJ Epenesa resigns for a 2-year deal. Daquan Jones resigns at the wee hours for a 2-year deal. And Nicholas Morrow on a 1-year deal from the Philadelphia Eagles slides in as a depth linebacker for the Buffalo Bills. Moves to come. And obviously we'll be back next Tuesday recapping more free agency because more. And as always, if you missed this episode, rewatch it. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just scroll back, and it comes out on audio platforms tomorrow morning. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you get your podcast. Type in Built in Buffalo Podcast Network. Over 600 people are watching right now. Let's freaking go. If you're watching, smash that like button. Let's keep going, guys. Over 600 people are watching right now. It means a lot to Lance and I. Right, Lance? It means a lot to you?
Means a ton. 2 4th-round picks, no 3rd-round pick.
Oh, Draft Simulator knows what they're doing, unlike PFF, because PFF doesn't know how to hit an update button on their system. Sorry, PFF. You can still sponsor the show if you want.
So we're on the clock here. Chop Robinson available as an edge rusher. We have an offensive tackle we don't need, and then we have a receiver. This is the perfect scenario, right? You have
exactly
pick of their litter. These 4 wide receivers are basically who you're going to find mocked. You have some people mocking Keon Coleman at 28. Absolutely hate that. If Keon Coleman's available at 60, I'd take him in a heartbeat. I'm not taking him at 28. So who do you want here?
So I don't think all these guys get there, in my opinion. I think a couple guys go before, maybe 1, maybe 2. Probably
look, we turned off trades, so that's going to matter too.
But if you gave me these 4, it's probably either Brian Thomas Jr. or A.D. Mitchell. It's Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know what I'm saying here. It's Brian Thomas Jr. This is you cannot pass up on those guys at 28. You just can't, because you just got your wide receiver too, right? You just got it.
Now Keon Coleman's here at number 60. Perfect, right? The way that this kid worked out, Braden Fisk here at 60 would be very interesting pick, depending on, again, how the defensive line room is shaped, how the safety room is shaped.
Yep.
Okay. You also have Devontae Walker here is a very intriguing prospect in the 2nd round as well. So again, free agency is going to help us sort this out
in a couple weeks.
But in the meantime, we only have the knowledge we have right now, right? We're going to probably
take a linebacker
here and take either, I'm going to say Fisk or Bullard.
I'm with you. It's safety, it's your D tackle here. If Xavier Leggett from South Carolina is on the board, you can think about it. But I don't. Oh, mama, we can think about it. We're thinking about it now. Damn it! I wish he wasn't on the board because I didn't want to think about. Because I would take him over any of the guys. I like Tez Walker. Don't want Keon Coleman if Leggett's there. Let's be not realistic. It's safety or D tackle, and it's probably whatever position we don't really add as much as we wanted in free agency. That's literally what you just said. But Lance, guess right now what free agent what room's a little more empty, D tackle or safety?
I think they're gonna fortify. They're probably gonna kind of safety. So I would say that the defensive line was going to be the one they would go with.
We also do need future guys there at D tackle as well as safety. But
yeah,
see what also this 3rd round pick does, kind of moving back a little, also gives me pause on the running backs just a bit. It does give me a little bit pause.
And here's where we still have Tyke Smith. Mustafa's there.
You think it's Tyke or Tyke? I think it's Tyke.
Why was it? Double E is E, the E sound. If you follow English language,
you think it's Tyke Smith?
Is that his name?
I have no idea, but that's wild, man.
We have I would love this scenario where we just passed up on.
Dude, if you don't take Cole Bishop, I'm gonna smack you.
if we just passed up on a safety, now again, we also have to look here, looking at depth. We
Yeah,
have
the Murphy kid's
Jordan
good.
Jefferson's down there,
No.
so we can always get there. Let's see, we got Jamari Thrash.
Jacob Cowing's good. He got some speed.
Cowing's there.
Mm-hmm.
We have a pick. We have another pick in 6 picks. So who's not going to be there in 6 picks that you'd
You
want?
taking Cole Bishop, dude. Taking Cole Bishop.
Boom.
Oh, I forgot to tweet. Oh, you know why I didn't tweet the last mock draft we did last week? Because it had the 3rd round compensatory pick in it, and I didn't want to get 20 of the same comment. Oh, we don't have that pick anymore. So I was like,
right. Fair
enough. Thank you, Ian, for telling us Poyer on a 1-year deal to Miami. Is he dead to you, Lance Poyer?
No, I mean, whatever. I assume he's not happy with the way
I agree.
he had to leave the Bills. And, 5th round projection. Get out of here. We're in the 4th still. So, what do you want to take another wide receiver?
What do we got?
Who do you like?
I got to do a little more scouting on these guys. I saw people like Jacob Cowing. I don't know. What is his size? Where does he?
Runs a 4.38. That's good enough for me. He's 5'8", 168 though. He's tiny.
Oh, mama, he's a small guy.
Yeah.
Could he be your punt return? 6 feet, 188.
188. Runs a 4.46. Seems like perfect for a 4th round pick.
Go to the running backs.
Labe. He's big.
Kendall Milton's a good. I like Dylan Johnson.
Yeah.
It's good. Is Marshawn Lloyd on the board? Definitely not. Nope, Marshawn Lloyd's not on the board. Like Frank Gore Jr. on day 3 would be cool. I know we're on day 3. What about guard?
Yeah, just look there. Not
nothing.
I do like Keegan and Cohen here. I think Cohen has a 5th round
weight on
him. 6th round even now.
Who's the BPA right now? Best player available.
Jamari Thrash.
Let's take Jamari Thrash. When in doubt, BPA. You don't know, you take a BPA. Scott's coming in saying KJ Hamler wins a spot and gets return duty.
I like it. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
No,
anybody saying that it can't happen, I don't understand that. Like
it's a cheap option too.
It's not like, again, these guys aren't necessarily gonna light the world on fire and be like
just don't fumble.
Top wide receivers, but it's just, again, these guys are getting in the building here, getting familiar with the organization, and they're going to come and compete. That's what they've always done their whole lives. They're competitors. And I'm not ruling out one of these guys. Andy Isabella did it. He came over, he made the roster, he made some plays, wasn't a
game stopper,
game wrecker in any certain game, but I just think that he got familiar with the offense and things, and maybe in a 2nd year, let's see where maybe he's the kick and punt returner. Why can't he be? He's done fine. So
yeah, KJ Hamler's one of those guys that's trying to resurrect his career, right? He was a high pick, didn't really pan out in Denver. He's trying to regain his momentum, trying to regain his value, trying to regain his career. That's what he's doing. Like Lance said, he's going to come in and compete. And if he comes in for the punt return, kick returning job, and he can hold on to the ball and is explosive, he has a 100% chance to go win that job, right? Like if he can, Bill's biggest thing when it comes to that, because you have such a good offense, hold on to the ball. You got to keep the ball. It's exactly what you want. And if he slides in, he's cheap. He's explosive. We know he has speed. Hasn't been really able to stay healthy. Didn't really pan out as a true receiver in Denver. And now he's one of the reasons he's on this cheap deal to the Bills. And he'll be obviously we're not there yet, but Lance, he'll be a cool summer training camp kind of guy to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah. I just was reading this one. I wanted to bring it up real quick, and I think that right now they're worse because they don't have everything filled yet.
Yeah.
Too early to say. I mean,
it's too early to say. You're right.
You
have to next week, Scott.
Well, you can't really say until August, early September. I don't know. It's hard to say because how's the 53 going to fill out? Once the 53 is set and you tell me who I've got going into week 1, then I can answer you, have we gotten better or worse? Because we could be a ton better in September 1st than anyone thinks we are right now.
July 1st. Ask me July 1st, which yeah, you know why? Because I do think there's a move coming in June, because you're going to have a $10 million open cap space. You're opening $10 million once Trey White becomes a post June 1st cut. So a Leonard Floyd type of deal, of a 1 year, $7 million deal. I think that's 100% in the cards, and it's not after the draft. Well, you're right, September. Like, to answer your question, not to be like wait a little, but to tell them like now, I would say they stay the same, right? Like, Gabe Davis is probably the biggest loss. Like, look, the trade, we haven't talked about this, but the Trey White loss, obviously it's more sentimental than value at this point, right? He had 2 season-ending injuries in the last 3 years, right? Like, that's tough. It's a tough way for Trey White. No one ever wanted that. No one ever envisioned that. We love Trey White. No love lost there. It's a business decision, and it made sense based off his injury history, and just he's not back to where he once was, which is so sad, and it's brutal. But it's we're thinking Bill's sake. It's right. And then when you have Jordan Poyer, we saw he was a step slow this year, and the Bills have to get younger, have to get a little faster at the safety position. And I thought moving off Poyer was right. The biggest one was the Mitch Morse, in my opinion. That was the biggest loss, in my opinion, was the Mitch Morse loss, which is kind of shaking, scary there. But they have a plan, and you got to trust the plan.
That's the biggest thing too, because you have now who's behind Connor McGovern, who's behind David Edwards, or who's going to be in front of David Edwards. I guess we don't know. So that's some of the questions that I have. Is how are they going to fill out the depth? Is Alec Anderson and Ryan Vandermark their answer, or are they good enough? If they perform well, then fine. But if they don't, then it's going to be like, man, we didn't do enough to fortify the depth of the offensive line.
Final question before we get out of here. Are the cap moves over, or are there more to come? It'd probably be the Teron Johnson extension if they go that route, and that will create cap space. So
probably 2, maybe 3 left to go.
Yeah, so we'll see there. Who else is up for extension? Also, Lance, your mic cut out, actually, if you didn't know.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's just not as quality as with your mic on. But you're good, man. We're out of here in a couple minutes.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly who else we got. I had the page open. I just closed it. So
you're good. No worries. But no, to answer the question, where I don't think we're done.
Not done.
We done? We're done though.
We are.
We're done until next week, guys. If you guys missed this episode, please rewatch this. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And as always, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you get your podcast, comes out tomorrow morning. Lance, anything else you got to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, make sure you check out all of our great content creators on Built in Buffalo.
Yes, sir.
We have builtinbuffalonews.com up there for you. And then also the Built in Buffalo social media pages. Guys are rocking it. Getting
you're back
out there. And, just go follow the brand. And if you can, head over to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, growing that. I think we're up over 2,000 now on the channel. So getting that back up, we did have to delete our channel at the beginning of last season, and still working to get back to where we were on the YouTube side of things. So appreciate everyone following, and check out all of the great podcasts coming up tomorrow, Going Deep on Wednesdays. Thursday is the Hoof Podcast. Friday is going to be the Buffalo Basement. Saturdays, our Founders with the Founders Pod, and Sunday is the Red Zone Report with the Izzy. So it's great stuff, live shows. T does her thing during the day on Thursday. Witty Not Funny is putting out some content. So yeah, it's great creators, writers, and social media content from Built in Buffalo. Thanks for all the support. Buffalo Blitz is presented by Underdog Fantasy. Promo code Blitz. If you sign up, it'll get you $100 or a deposit match up to $100. Excuse me. and you'll be in to play the best daily fantasy. They have a pick'em game that's kind of second to none in the daily fantasy world. Gives you a little bit of a actual flair for a sports book, even though it's not. So
over 650 people are watching or listening to us right now. Appreciate every single one of you. We'll be back next week recapping more free agency stuff, what the Bills do in the next week. We'll break all that down, a little more draft talk as we start entering that season a little bit more in depth. Follow us on all of our social medias at DiBiasi Peter on Twitter, and for Lance at Lance Nelson BIB. That's going to do it for us. He was Lance and I was Peter. And as always, go Bills.
Go Bills, baby.